Hi, this is Baird with Simple Wealth, and today I want to talk about how to start investing for your future. There are 5 steps you can take, and you can actually start those steps today to make sure that you are set for your financial future. It doesn't really matter your age, but the younger you get started, the easier it's going to be to build up a significant chunk of wealth so that you're comfortable in retirement. And these are steps that anybody can take. It doesn't matter if you work a 40K a year job. That might be about the threshold of where you want to get started so you actually have enough money to work with, but it doesn't require having tons of money. None of these steps require having a 6-figure salary. So let's dive into it. So, step one is to make sure that you're contributing 15% of all of your earnings to a 401k. Now, mainly here, we're talking about an employer 401k where you're also going to get free matching, and most companies do a 4 or 5% match. But making sure that you're doing that 15% contribution is going to set you up for a pretty cozy retirement. To be able to replace your current pay in retirement, you need to contribute about 15% of your pay. And 15% is something that Dave Ramsey recommends. It's something that Andre Jake recommends. And a lot of other financial gurus out there recommend contributing 15% of your pay to your employer 401k. Now, if you also have income outside of your employer, let's say you're self-employed, let's say you have a side hustle, Uber, you're selling something online, make sure you're also contributing 15% of that income as well. So you're not losing out on that extra income that you might make in some years or throughout your career. So step two, max out your personal Roth IRA. So this personal Roth IRA is completely separate from your employer Roth IRA, and it does have a lot stricter limits. If you're under age 50, you can only contribute $6,000 a year. If you're age 50 or older, you can contribute $7,000 total per year. It's an extra $1,000 called a catch-up contribution. And the huge benefit and the reason why it's really important to have a personal Roth IRA is that all the money that you put in there as the investment grows over time in good index funds or whatever mutual funds you've invested in, all of that growth is tax-free. And so if you have decades of investing, your money is going to probably 3 or 4x in the time that you have it invested in those funds. It might even 5x if you have really good growth funds. And all of that growth is tax-free. And it's pretty much the only investment vehicle you have to have tax-free growth. So it's really important to max that out every year so that your future self will thank you when you are sitting on a good amount of money to make you comfortable in retirement. And it's also money you could use to pay off a house, pay for a brand new car, do some of the lifestyle things that you want to do that you may not be able to do right now, but you're going to have a lot more money to do that later. Travel, give back, do more work for charity, give to your favorite charities. It's going to enable a lot of those things because that money is tax-free. So step three, we're looking at making sure you have an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. And you want to stash this probably in a high yield savings account. I wouldn't necessarily recommend investing your emergency fund unless maybe you're married and your spouse has a pretty good emergency fund that can support both of you. But keeping that emergency fund in some kind of a very liquid asset is important. So if you had a medical emergency or your car breaks down or you need that money right away, you have a home repair, you've got that money handy and can use it. And even in a high yield savings account, you're going to be able to get that money out in about 3 to 5 business days. So most expenses that you're going to incur, even if it's an emergency, you're going to have access to that money right away. It's a really important step to making sure you're financially secure and not having to put something on a high interest credit card, because credit cards are a really horrible idea to build up credit card debt. So step four, after you have that emergency fund, invest the rest of your savings in index funds. Now, what's an index fund? Index fund is kind of similar to a mutual fund. It might track the S&P 500. It might track the total US stock market. It might track the whole world. But index funds are important because they allow you to make smart investments that grow over time, especially over long periods of time. Your money has a lot of room to grow. Index funds take a lot of the guesswork out of investing. You can put a few $100 a month in if that's what you can afford. And it's a very simple way to have a diversified investment. And to invest in those, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can use a brokerage app like Robinhood or Webull, and I've got links in the description below. You'll get a free stock if you join either of those platforms if you're new. You can also have a brokerage account through TD Ameritrade, Schwab, or the app Public to invest those extra savings with mutual funds. The only thing with those are some of the fees are higher. And if you do it through a financial planner or a money manager, they're going to charge you a lot of extra money to have those, whereas you can pay zero fees or very low fees. We're talking $3 to $10 per $10,000 invested, which is not even 1%, like it's nothing. But a lot of times when you put your money in through a money manager, they're going to charge you what's called a loading fee. And that could be as high as 5%. They're going to take right off the top. So I would actually avoid using those people and just pay the flat fee for investment advice and money management, financial planning advice, rather than succumbing to all those high fees. It's not necessary. So which index funds could you invest in? That really depends on your age and your risk tolerance. If you're younger, I would say if you're at an age where you still have like another 20 years to invest, looking at MGK, it's a high growth fund. VTI, Total Market Index, excellent choice for people pretty much no matter what your age. You could be investing a portion of your income in VTI and see about probably in the long run 10% annual return. If you're looking at a big span of time, we're talking decades. VUG is another growth fund. VGT is a technology ETF. It's a technology fund, so it tracks some of the top information technology companies. VOO, it tracks the S&P 500. ARKK is a Cathie Wood fund that tracks a lot of innovative and disruptive companies around the United States, and they have a very high rate of return. It hasn't been doing so great in the last year, but if you stick with them, or if you buy the dips, could be a good fund to do. VHT is a healthcare fund doing very, very well in the last 5 to 10 years. ARKG is a fund by Cathie Wood's company ARC that does genomic investing. So companies that are doing innovative things with the human genome. And the ARKQ is another Cathie Wood fund, and that is for robotics and automation. So that's something she is expecting that's going to blow up a lot in the next 5 to 10 years. So it could be a good one to look at investing in if you're young. If you're older, you want to be a little more conservative with your investments, but still see some growth. So if you're over 40, maybe over 50, if you've only got 10, 15 years left till retirement, or if you're at retirement, SPHQ is a fund that tracks some stocks that pay about a 2% dividend, but there's also some good growth, and those stocks have good fundamentals. So it's a little more selective than just buying the S&P 500, because some of those companies are high growth, but they haven't really weathered a lot of time necessarily. SCHD is a fund that is a high dividend paying fund that pays about 3% dividend as of December 2021, 3% per year. And that one also has good growth compared to some other high dividend funds that don't pay very, very high dividend funds that don't have good growth. VIG is a fund that tracks companies that have it's called dividend appreciation. So they are companies that have grown their dividends over time. They have a great track record for that. It's also got good growth. And then the last one, going back to VTI, that's a total market fund. It contains over 4,000 stocks. It represents the whole U.S. stock market. So that can still be a good one to do a slice of your portfolio in VTI and just buy it every month as you can afford it, pretty much no matter your age. It does pay a lot smaller dividend, but the growth there is going to make up for the loss of the dividend. So step 5, after you've done the other investments, you've got your company 401k, you're contributing 15% to that. And you've got your Roth IRA and you're contributing, even a few $100 a month to that, preferably the full amount of $500 a month if you're under age 50. And then you've got your emergency fund, and then you're also investing in a brokerage. Save for a home and pay it off before retirement. One of the biggest things to be financially set in retirement is having a paid off home. And you can use the investments in step 2 and step 4 to be able to pay for that home. The Roth IRA, if you don't have that home paid off by the time you hit retirement age, when you withdraw from that Roth, it's all tax-free money, and you could take big chunks of money and pay off your home completely. And then the other way is that personal brokerage account where you're investing in index funds every month and then using the growth of that to pay for a home. That money will be taxed if you have that when you sell stocks or sell index funds. In your individual brokerage account, you are going to pay capital gains taxes. So that's the disadvantage compared to the Roth. But that can be additional money you're investing if you've already got your Roth maxed out and you have extra money beyond a good chunk of savings. You can use those gains to pay for a home. And then after you buy the house and you're already investing and done all these other things, it might be time to think about an electric vehicle. In the long run of owning an electric vehicle, they actually cost quite a bit less than owning a gas guzzling car because the maintenance costs are a lot less and the fuel costs are a lot less. And if you could also invest in solar panels, or if the electric rates where you live are really low, the cost of owning that EV is going to be way less than owning a similar gas vehicle. Not to mention it's better for the environment. All right, so taking a look at a recap of everything we talked about. First, you want to make sure you're contributing 15% towards your company 401k, and also to make sure you're getting that free money through matching. Most employers do a 3 to 5% match or more, depending on the employer. Some employers are even more generous. Max out that Roth IRA, $6,000 a year, $500 a month. If you can afford to do $500 a month, it's better to do it sooner because your money actually has more time to grow over that entire year invested in an index fund. Emergency fund with 3 to 6 months of expenses. Very important to not go into debt. Invest the rest of your savings in index funds. Don't let that money sit in a high yield savings account. It's going to lose money to inflation. It's a waste sitting in a high yield savings account. It's one of the biggest mistakes that young people make. And then looking at buying a home. If you've done all these other things and you can afford it financially and it's not going to stretch you financially, get into that home in a place that you love, and then make sure you're paying it off before you want to retire. So doing all these things is really key to your financial future. And it's something that a lot of young people overlook. I'm only 34 and I didn't start doing a lot of these things until about a year ago. It was not financially savvy. I had been investing for a while, been day trading, but I made a lot of mistakes. And in making those mistakes, I had to go back to the drawing board and really find out what those critical pieces were to secure my financial future. The other thing to think about is if you're in credit card debt, you may only be able to do step 1 and step 3. Credit card debt is so high interest that it's actually not going to be advantageous to do some of these other steps until your credit card debt is either wiped out or so low that you have some option where the interest is not so high. You're not paying massive, hundreds of dollars in interest a year or thousands of dollars in interest a year. Those credit card interest rates are pretty much higher than any investment's going to yield you unless it's a really, really risky investment. So get that credit card debt paid down, and then you can start tackling steps 2, 4, and 5. I hope this video is helpful for you. And if you're a young person, just get started with investing, make smart decisions, get in those index funds, be really careful with crypto, and make sure you're taking advice from people who actually have money and are not broke or sitting on meme stocks. Also, check out the links in the description below if you haven't already to get a free stock with Robinhood or Webull when you sign up for either of those platforms. Also, I have a link in the description below to Amazon. And anytime you use that link to buy anything, diapers, a TV, Christmas gift, anything you want, if you use that link, I get a little bit of commission, helps keep this channel running. I appreciate your time. Thank you guys for checking out the video. Please subscribe, smash that like button, and check out our next video.